Boy, Linda, I was very moved by your words during the last panel that's talking about the war at home. And seeing your presence on the panel reminded me of a wonderful, wonderful blog that was written by a Palestinian poet. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And this idea of being Palestinian American and trying to represent free speech and truth and living in our bodies, in our realities, but also understanding that there was an air, of course, that was going around the country at that time that was so anti everything that she represented and stood for. And so here you are as a delegate for the New York State delegation in this amazing time of highly charged political rhetoric that is anti-Muslim. Can you speak a little bit about how you see your responsibility as a delegate and how that jives with who you represent in your skin?
Absolutely. Just watching the election and listening to the different rhetoric coming out, most from one party, but of course not exclusive to one party, is that everything that I am is criminalized. I'm a woman, I'm a Palestinian American, I'm Arab American, I'm from a part of the world that continues to be vilified as a hotbed for terrorism. My faith has been vilified, a faith that 1.7 billion people in this world follow. Palestinians in particular, and I remember one time in a GOP debate, my children having to hear Marco Rubio say that Palestinians are terrorists, and having young people who carry that lineage in their blood to understand why, what makes them these really evil people when they have been taught to love people and respect people. It's been a very hard time, and I'm an American, and for me what an American is someone who wants to ensure that our country really stands up to its original ideals. It doesn't make me unpatriotic to speak truth to power in my country. That is why my parents came here from living under a military occupation. And it's important for voices like mine to be in these spaces. We are agitators, we're protesters, we're not usually on the inside. And for us to be on the inside, we can have these conversations. I've given out I support Palestinian human rights buttons to everybody at the DNC, to the point where a very right-wing Zionist Jewish rabbi actually made a point on Twitter to say, wow, everyone's wearing I support Palestinian human rights. Didn't see that, for Israel. And it showed me the power of building relationships with individuals. So it's not lost on me to be at the DNC and networking and letting people experience who I am as a Palestinian and as a Muslim American.
And in that same token, on the panel, you talked about the idea of whitewashing history and the need for having more media representation of all various viewpoints so that we can stand in our skin and our truth and be able to proclaim that in a way where we can share it with larger audiences. WURD is the only independently owned Black Talk radio station in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, one of the few that remains in the nation. So we know a little bit about what you spoke about. Talk about your entrees into media as well, and why you felt it was necessary to begin an outlet where you could continue to speak about the issues that are important to you.
There are many Arab Americans and Muslim Americans across the country doing really important work, but it takes risk for people like us to be so visible in the media. I get death threats from people all the time who don't want to hear the truth and don't want to see people like me with a platform. And I appreciate independent media because it allows me to say what I want to say. It allows me to frame my thoughts in the way that I want to frame them, because I don't want to be whitewashed. I've seen how we have whitewashed people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, we spent time calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist, and all of a sudden now Nelson Mandela is the freedom fighter. And and I want people to see our generation as a generation that has archived and documented our story, so though nobody can retell my story to my great-great-grandchildren, then my grandchildren will say, actually, that wasn't my great-great-grandmother. My grandmother stood for truth and power. My grandmother built with Black people and with Asian American and with Latinos, and that my great-grandmother was able to connect the dots. And I think the important thing that we got from today was that our liberations bound up together, our freedoms are bound up together, and when there's a group of people in our country who don't have freedom or full freedom, then none of us have freedom, and that includes white people who live in this country.
Absolutely. And one of my friends tweeted earlier that of the Black population here in Philadelphia, and I wasn't aware of this, 36% are Black Muslims. How do we, in a city like Philadelphia that is so unusual in that way, with that larger voice that is not necessarily recognized by delegates or by elected officials in the larger community, how do we begin to build greater bridges of understanding between people of various faiths, but also even within an ethnic group about how that colors the way that we would like to be politically engaged and how we can bond together and have more empowerment if we work together?
The media has portrayed Muslims to be people that look like me, people from the Middle East or from South Asia, when in fact in the United States of America, 1/3 of Muslims as a whole are African American. And I always think about trauma of black people, but imagine if you are a black Muslim. So you're already experiencing the discrimination, the targeting, the marginalization of being a black person in America, but now you're also Muslim. And I think this is a community that's voices have not been uplifted in the way that they should. Because the media benefits from showing you someone who's foreign versus reminding us that black Muslims are indigenous to this country. They can trace their lineage back to before the slave trade. In the United States of America. And they are the ones that give me hope, and they're the ones that give me my roots and give me the courage as a Palestinian whose parents came here in the 1970s, that I can say I'm a Muslim and my lineage is so deeply rooted in this nation. It was because black slaves secretly prayed, secretly worshiped my God, that I can do that now. And I think that's a story that's not being told.
Well, we look forward to not letting today be the only time that we get a chance to hear from you, to bond with you, to elevate this message, because our goals are so very, very similar. And WURD wants to be a welcoming place for us to continue this dialogue. So thank you for giving us some time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 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 Thank you. Thank you.